Welcome to the Sun today for the 9th of February 2025. And the exciting news today is that we have a geomagnetic storm, albeit a weak one, but more on that later. A quick summary. Solar activity overall has been dropping. The sunspot number is now down to about 125. We do have one new numbered region, that's 3989, that's in the northeast part of the sun. Solar events are also down. We have had just 6 C flares today, no M flares, and just 2 coronal mass ejections. Solar wind speed, that has increased. That's gone from 350 kilometers per second up to 600 kilometers per second. The increased solar wind speed, combined with the fact that BZ has turned negative, has produced us a weak geomagnetic storm. We have 9 sunspot regions on the sun, one of which is newly numbered. That's 3989 in the top left there. As I said, the sunspot number has dropped as we're losing some of the regions over the northwest limb, and that will continue tomorrow. And the area of sunspots has dropped to 685 millionths of the surface area of the sun. You can see in the southeast that we have a new region, quite a large sunspot coming over the limb, and we'll have to wait a day or two to see what the structure is there, but hopefully that'll give us a little bit more activity. As I said, we have a weak geomagnetic storm. That's a G1 level storm shown here in yellow. KP is about 5, and that is probably a result from the coronal hole producing high-speed wind that is now brushing past the Earth. This looks as though it's starting to drop. It could re-intensify in the next few hours, but because of the narrowness of that coronal hole, I don't think any geomagnetic storm is going to last very long or get very intense. On the right we have the solar wind speed, and you can see there's some of the recent measurements show we're up to above 600 kilometers per second, and the temperature is now much higher temperature than we've seen the last few days, meaning that the source of this wind is more coronal than photospheric or transition region. You can see from the model on the left here that the auroral arc is much more active than it has been for the last few days. There's a large area of red in there, which means it's very active. Also the aurora may be as far south as the Canadian border here in North America. On the right we have some selected images from the internet showing the aurora as taken from various spots around the world. Quite spectacular, even though it's only a weak G1 storm. In contrast, we've only had 6 C flares today. They are shown here, and you can see they're not very spectacular. There's nothing very large. Although, just as I'm doing this, we've had an M1 flare, which will count towards tomorrow's total. I don't feel there's enough interesting images here to warrant making a movie of this. Similarly, coronal mass ejections have been relatively quiet. We've only had 2 registered by SOHO. The solar wind speed, as I say, increased, which is not due to any coronal mass ejections. It's due to the coronal hole that we've been discussing for the last few days. So I'm going to show you the usual C2 coronagraph movie, and then followed by the C3 movie, so you can see the larger field of view. There interestingly have been no comments for several days. Well, let's have a stab at tomorrow's forecast. It's getting very tricky because the sun is in some areas decreasing in activity and in other areas increasing. I suspect the sunspot numbers will continue to decline as more of those big regions in the northwest go over the limb. Flare activity is moderating, as you've seen, but we may get the odd large flare as we have already had this morning. The solar wind speed I think will moderate. back to about 500 kilometers per second, maybe less. The geomagnetic storm is unlikely to intensify further than G1, but it's possible, I suppose. But because of the narrowness of that coronal hole, I suspect that this will not last very long. Once again, thank you for listening. If you enjoy these videos, please pass them on to friends or neighbors or relations who you think might benefit from understanding more about how the sun works. And so until next time, stay safe and goodbye.